I'm Alexis.
And I'm Tiffany, and we're the hosts of Legit KidLit, a video series where we get to see into the secret and silly lives of authors and illustrators.
We love to celebrate and promote books, but most of all, we want to say hey to all you readers out there trying to find that right book for you. We hope that you can find some new reads after today.
Carissa Turpin is a middle grade author and educator from Kentucky. She has been an avid reader and writer her whole life. Her debut novel, Doomsday Dani, was recently published by Orange Blossom Publishing.
Hey Carissa, we are so excited to learn more about your book. If you could pitch your book, Doomsday Dani, in 5 words, what would those 5 words be?
So to describe Dani in 5 words, I think I would probably cheat and use sort of the tagline of the book, which is, let's panic like it's 1999. I think that kind of summarizes the anxiety the protagonist feels. I think it kind of summarizes, the historical setting of the novel. And, it kind of encapsulates the way many people felt in 1999 about, just the millennium and the new possibilities that were opening up to them. And while that was very exciting, it was also very anxiety-ridden and scary. So, yeah, let's panic like it's 1999, I think, is the perfect 5-word pitch for Doomsday Dani.
I just love the premise of your book. How did you come up with the idea?
Actually, I was a middle school teacher. I still am a middle school teacher. But at the time, I was working in Phoenix, Arizona in 2019. And some of my kids were kind of hanging around the classroom talking about how strange it would be to see the calendar go from 2019 to 2020. And that led me to kind of talk about the calendar going from 1999 to 2000. And when I told them about Y2K and I told them about how scared people were, they were really surprised and they had never heard of that. And so I thought, okay, this is a period of time that's really not touched on very often, and I thought it would make a good historical middle grade book. And so I wrote the idea down, but it wasn't until COVID, when schools went on lockdown, that I really started to kind of work really hard on the book and bring it to life.
So even though some of our viewers may not have been around during the 90s, we would like to familiarize our audience with some pop culture from that time with a little Would You Rather. So first thing first, would you rather play on your Tamagotchi or play on your Game Boy?
So in the book, Dani, who is the protagonist of the novel, has a Game Boy. I call it a Game Grasp because I wasn't sure about the legality of that particular item. But I was a big Game Boy fan. I had a Game Boy, but I also was a big Tamagotchi fan. I loved my Tamagotchi. I was constantly scared that it was going to die. I think in the end I'd have to go with Game Boy just because, there was a variety of games there, but I loved my Tamagotchi too. So that would have been a real Sophie's Choice situation.
Listen to NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Backstreet Boys. Funny story, one of the Backstreet Boys, Kevin Richardson, is actually from my hometown, and I am from a very small town in eastern Kentucky, and we don't get a lot of celebrities, so the fact that he was someone who made it big was a really big deal to us, and for that reason, I've got to go Backstreet Boys.
Okay, this is a tough one. Space Jam or Hocus Pocus?
Space Jam or Hocus Pocus? Space Jam all the way. I went through a little bit of a phase when I was probably Dani's age, about a preteen, where I did really like basketball. I enjoyed, basketball related things. And so, yeah, I'd have to go with Space Jam.
Rugrats or Animaniacs? Another tough one.
Rugrats or Animaniacs? That's really tough. I think I'd have to go with Animaniacs. I was a huge Animaniacs fan. It always made me feel, because it had these kind of jokes that were for both kids and adults, it always kind of made me feel very smart and mature. I actually got a new puppy about a year ago, and he was a boy, and I named him Leo. But if he had been a girl, I was going to name him Dot after the girl character in Animaniacs. So I'm a pretty big fan.
eat Dunkaroos or 3D Doritos?
I think Dunkaroos. I can't remember really being that crazy about 3D Doritos, even though they were definitely very trendy and like on brand. So yeah, I think I'll have to go Dunkaroos. Those were great. If you got them in your lunch, you felt like $1,000,000. So yeah.
Sport a slap bracelet or a scrunchie?
Slap bracelet or scrunchie. Slap bracelet all the way. I've always had trouble really like making a scrunchie look cute, even when I was a kid. So slap bracelet for sure. Probably Bagel Bites. Lunchables have always been a little icky to me, and I know that's weird. The processed meat in them, I'm just not crazy about. So probably Bagel Bites if I had to choose.
Tootsie Roll Pop or Blow Pop?
Tootsie Pop or Blow Pops, definitely Tootsie Pop. I like to look in for the, I don't know if like this was something that is common everywhere, but we always said there was like a hidden star on the Tootsie Pop wrapper. And so we were always trying to look for that when we had a Tootsie Pop, and so that was fun. And so I'll probably have to go Tootsie Pop.
Sonic or Mario?
Sonic or Mario? Definitely Mario. I remember my cousin had a Sega Genesis and I played Sonic on it for a little bit, but I think Mario has just been a very prominent common figure throughout my life. I can remember having a Nintendo when I was a kid and just being amazed by it, and it seems like every phase of my life there's been a new Nintendo related console and a new Nintendo like Mario game, and so because he's been such a constant fixture in my life, I guess I'll probably have to go Mario.
Christina or Britney Spears?
Christina or Britney all the way. I am so happy that she is free and living life on her own terms. A little bit worried about her as of recent, but yeah, I was always more of a Britney fan. But I love Christina too. We were very fortunate in the late 90s, early aughts to have a lot of very like powerful female singers and role models. They weren't always treated well by the media at that time, but it was a very interesting time to grow up. Advice would you give yourself back in middle school? I don't remember a ton about middle school. I do know it was a difficult period of time for me. I've always been someone who has certain subject areas do not come easy to me. Math, for example, was always something I really struggled with. And it always made me feel like I was so much more stupid than my classmates, because it would take me, much longer to grasp a concept that they seemed to grasp right away. So I think if I could go back and tell myself anything, it would be, the struggles you're having now, you're going to get through them. They're not going to have any kind of bearing on your future success. And I would probably tell myself to advocate for myself, to tell people, that I was really struggling, that I needed help, instead of being embarrassed. So advocating for like the things that I need. But I would just overall tell myself, your struggles in specific subject areas are indicative of, a learning disability, which does not make you any different or lesser than your peers. I think if I knew that I was going to grow up and become an educator and help kids like me, I think I would have been really excited about that. So that's probably what I would have told myself.
We heard that in the back of your book you have a discussion guide for parents and teachers. Love that. What is one question that you have?
Sure. So, one of the things that was really important to me was to make sure that we could market Doomsday Dani, not market it to teachers, but that it was accessible to teachers. Prior to, publishing the book, I had a blog where I would take very popular YA novels and talk to teachers about ways they could incorporate those YA novels into their classroom, because I'm a big advocate of kids reading really relevant modern texts as opposed to, classics that have been around for hundreds of years. Nothing wrong with classics that have been around for hundreds of years, but, we live in a time of just this very fantastic, rich YA fiction, and I feel like, if you don't incorporate that into your curriculum, it's a missed opportunity. all that being said, when I knew I was going to publish a book, I wanted to make sure as well that it was something that was accessible to teachers and that teachers could use it in their classroom. I've got a lot of questions in there about literary elements. What makes, who's the antagonist of this story? How does Dani's childhood bedroom characterize her? So the things that teachers are told via their state standards that they have to teach, things like characterization and directed, I already said characterization, so characterization and simile and, the various literary elements. I wanted to find a way that a teacher could use those, or they could use Dani in their classroom to teach those literary elements, but then also they'll be able to teach this book that deals a great bit with themes of, trusting online information. What kinds of cautionary procedures should you take before you trust an online source, which I think is extremely relevant right now in our current climate. I can't think of anything more valuable to teach young people than how to be really smart consumers of information. So as well, checking all those literary element and state standard boxes, as well as being able to teach the kids some really important life lessons. That was very important to me, and I'm glad that guide is in the back of Dani's book. So it looks like
we're going to close this interview by playing a few rounds of flop or bop with some 90s songs.
I'll go ahead and tell you my opinion for this. So Torn by Natalie Imbruglia, definite bop as far as I'm concerned. I think that song and that music video, I can just close my eyes and still imagine every moment of that music video. One thing that was really cool about the late 90s is just the influx of music videos that we had and how much of an impact they had on us. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that maybe there's not as much of an emphasis on music videos today. But gosh, seeing those music videos and seeing them come out and getting to see the artists, that was just such a big deal in my mind. So definitely Torn. Not that I think it's I was a big fan. Wonderwall by Oasis, I can kind of take it or leave it. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a flop, but I definitely was not quite as big of a Oasis fan. They were popular in 95. I would have been 10 years old, and I'm not sure that, I was very into boy bands and, these very powerful female singers. So I don't think Oasis was ever a band that I was crazy about. I don't think it's a terrible song. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a flop, but it's definitely not one of my favorites. Bop by Hanson, on the other hand, I was a huge Hanson fan. I think Hanson might have been the first musical artist that I really just kind of I fangirled over, later, of course, it would be NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and all of this. But Bop, I can remember as being one of the first real boy bands to, or Hanson, I can remember as being one of the first real boy bands to come up on the scene, and I was crazy about them. So definite bop as far as that's concerned. Macarena, I think bop maybe the first 1,000 times I heard it, and then after that I was pretty much done with it. I can remember it was so catchy and so cool, and learning the dance was so cool for maybe 6 months, and then it was just everywhere. It was on TV, we were doing it in school, so for that reason maybe I have to say flop. But again, I would probably, if I heard any of these songs on the radio, I'd be really, really excited. It just for nostalgia reasons, I think they're all bops right now as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Carissa. This was a lot of fun, and you're a rock star, and we love you, and we can't wait to share your books out in the world. So everyone, thank you for watching, and head on over to Carissa's website, give her a follow, and check out her book.
Thank you guys for having me. I hope you have a great day. I appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks for watching.